charismatic Christian messages this week, blogs, articles. There's this backlash to the type of worship that we do. And I want to explain the type of worship we do and why we do it. There's a backlash, even among charismatic churches, against specifically three streams of music: Bethel, Elevation, and Hillsong. We don't do much Hillsong. We used to do a lot of Bethel. We're not doing quite as much. A little bit of Elevation every once in a while. But it doesn't matter. That's the point is this, is they're saying that music is not doctrinal enough and not theological enough. And so I just want to say, if you hear that, because there's some of it in our community, I'm going to say this: it's not theological at all. We're not trying to teach theology. If you want to teach theology, get out the red book or the black book. If you're from denominational churches, you know what I'm talking about. Those are the two types of hymnals, the red book or the black one. Those are theological. I mean, go back to John Wesley's hymns that he wrote 250 years ago. They're awesome. I don't have any problem with them. They're great. If you want theology, do it. We're not trying to make theological statements. One of the biggest criticisms is it's too... We're not supposed to be getting into that type of music. And we just see it differently. It's not a us, this is them. I don't see worship as teaching theology. I see worship as opening a door into intimacy with the Father. And because that's what our purpose is, as we see it. Each church can do whatever they want to into God. And hymns teach theology, but for me personally, they don't guide me into intimacy. So there's a place for both. But where we're going is intimacy. Let me read to you Revelation 21. So this is at the end of everything. This is John saying this. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw this is the part I want you to, I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem. Most people think that's a physical building. Maybe it is, but that's not the primary meaning here. Why? Because it explains it in the next part of verse 2 of Revelation 21. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven for God, prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, now the dwelling of God is with men, and He will live with them. They will be His people, and God Himself will be with them and be their God. The New Jerusalem, New Earth, is prepared as a bride, and He's, as it says here, He's the dwelling in you. Now, there may be a physical building, but He doesn't dwell in buildings. He dwells in a building of living stones, which is me and you. He dwells in men/mankind. So, where we're going is an intimacy prepared as a bride. And so our goal here in worship is to do the best we can to usher you and me into intimacy. There's also a teachings going around. And I'm just saying this, not an us versus them, but if you hear this, to keep confusion down or why we do this. That says, to attract men, you don't talk about the bride, you don't have wedding dresses in a room, you don't talk about intimacy. It will hurt your church. It's pretty common. And I will acknowledge that probably does happen with American men. I acknowledge it because it's a cultural thing. Okay? But the first time I went overseas and I was with a Middle Eastern guy, I didn't even know him. And when he greeted me, he kissed me on both cheeks and waited for me to kiss him back. Okay. I did, but it was extremely awkward. Is my culture closer to God or is his culture closer to the kingdom? We have to discern that our culture may not be Jesus' culture. In the Bible, it says that John laid his head on Jesus' chest. Okay, I love Sean. If he ever lays his head on my chest, I will be kind and not say anything. But that will be more awkward than the guy that kissed me on both cheeks. I don't think he'd do that anyway, because he's an American like me. But is that culture, if Jesus was here and some guy laid his head on Jesus' chest, they're going to say that's not God and not Christian. Well, which one is what? And part of our job here is not to make us happy in our culture. Part of our job is to show there is another culture. Sometimes it agrees with our culture, and sometimes it doesn't. I remember 15 years ago when I started making this journey, and I was at IHOP KC at the One Cry conference that they had. I mean, it was on fire, like 13,000 people, almost all under 25 years old. It gave me hope for the future. And this Golden Gloves boxer, Mike Bickle, he used to be a Golden Gloves boxer. If you don't know what that is, you can go Google it. He, wasn't a professional boxer, but it's like amateur of some sort or another. He gets up and he goes, I'm in love with a man. Now, this is 15 years ago, way before the LGBTQ plus MAPQLMO movement. One day we're going to have the whole alphabet. All right, Craig, be nice. So move on. Oh, God, forgive me. I probably shouldn't have said that. Some things just need to stay in your mind and not go to your mouth. There needs to be a little governor there. And if you knew how much I actually leave in my mind, you'd probably never come back. And so, but anyway, he goes, I'm in love with a man. And I'm like, okay, this isn't going well. Is he exposing some moral failure? And his name is Jesus. And I'm like, I am not got enough of the kingdom culture to say that yet. And there was a problem with me. And so anyway, when you hear talk about manhood, do stop, go, blah, 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 all whatever, grunting and fishing and hunting and whatever. That's cool. I don't have any problem with that. Do that. But one day, we're going to be putting our heads, if we want to, turn the governor on, Craig, on his chest, because our view of manhood is going to realize we can be strong and reveal ourselves. And it's not being shut off. We can do all the other stuff, but it's also in intimacy. Now, saying all that, I realize we are going totally countercultural. If I was out on the left coast, I might have more hope. Okay, you might be moving a little bit more in this direction. But in the American South, it's an uphill battle. But all I'm going to say is I recognize it's an uphill battle. I recognize sitting there, and because what's going on in the Christian thing is you need to sing songs not about intimacy and love and all this stuff. It's about conquering and an adventure. Well, we do both. Get Jason up there doing Wild Wild Ride and Anthem of War. That's conquering and adventure. Okay? And then we move over to the intimacy. That's the part of us that needs to grow and mature if we're going to be the bride. And I realize it's hard. I realize it's countercultural. But I realize also I'm not going to let the culture of us that we grew up in, especially my generation, that was taught you don't even cry, don't even show emotions. I'm not going to let that. I mean, if I'm going to do that, fine, but you can't call it God. Jesus cried in the Gospels. If I was there, I would have been embarrassed. Stop that, you whiny guy. Just grow up and move on. That's what I would have thought in my mind. I would have had the governor on. But that's my culture speaking. It's not a kingdom culture. And so, you either don't go in that direction or you try to go in that direction and it is uncomfortable. But it's good if men can get free in their emotions. I'm not talking about crying all day long. But if they can get free, it helps in the family. It brings in compassion. It brings in mercy. It brings in an identification. You raise more well-rounded kids. And unless you have a type A choleric wife, they like it too. Amen. So anyway, that battle's going on. We're going the way we go because I think there's other values. And that is John putting his head on Jesus' chest, which still I'm not there yet. I'm just not there, Sean, so don't ask me to do that. But I realize that's a problem in me, and you'll find cultures that'll do that. And in many ways, they're more biblical than ours, and in ways, ours is more biblical than